I am so glad to see you all here, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for everything that you all are doing. You are the heroes. You are the ones that are out there figuring out how to rewire our global economy and doing it with the people in your organizations and carrying that torch. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in your company. I'm also grateful because I'm extremely lucky to be in your company. Believe it or not, I wouldn't be here if it was not for the fact that 18 years ago I went to the student activities fair at my college and I said something really obnoxious. I walked up to the Students Against Sweatshops. There's a student group that was demanding that the university work to eliminate sweatshops from its licensed apparel supply chain. And I said to Sarah Jewett, I said, don't you realize you're just hurting the people you're trying to help? Those people need those jobs, and you're going to take them away. And I'll forever be grateful that Sarah very sweetly, said, you know what? We're really concerned about that. What we are wanting is for those to be good jobs. And so that's why we've been working with labor organizers and with lawyers and licensing contractors and the university and the apparel companies to figure out how we can go about buying the apparel for our university in a way that is consistent with the world that we want. And what we figured out is that what we're asking the university to do is negotiate what are called no cut and run contracts, which means that we're going to hold them responsible if we find something in a factory that is, wage theft or sexual harassment or unsafe working conditions. We're going to hold our licensors, we're going to hold our suppliers accountable for remedying those situations and making those into good jobs. And I thought, wow. First of all, I'm perfectly amazed that 18, 19-year-old kids are in international conversations about how to make the apparel supply chain like that. But secondly, I was shocked because I didn't realize that purchasing had the ability to do that we had the ability to say, we want something, we need something to meet the needs of our organization, and we want it to be done in a way that is consistent with the world that we want. And to be able to therefore have that be a creative process where we're actually calling into existence the world that we want. And I got involved and in that student group and saw something really remarkable. First of all, I was there to witness the transition. Some of you may know that to this day, the collegiate licensed apparel supply chain is the poster child for responsible apparel production. It is widely recognized as being, by human rights advocates and others, as being the model that everyone else should follow. And that is true because of that work that those students did. But the thing is that it's not that the students were brilliant or had all the answers or knew what needed to be done exactly. It was simply that they knew the secret, which is an open secret, but it was the secret, which is that it should be possible. It should be possible for us to buy apparel and know that the people who made it were taken care of. That should be possible. And so in all the conversations, I was in conversations with all these labor lawyers and licensing contractors and others, and the president of the university, I'll never forget a meeting where she was telling us and the lawyers were telling us why it just wasn't possible. It's just not possible. And we said, well, maybe it's not possible today, but you can't tell us it's not technically possible to produce apparel in a way that we know that it is done in good conditions. And I'll never forget because you could see it on her face. She realized that we were right. And she said, okay, you're right. We're going to figure this out. And she actually tasked the licensing lawyer with getting to work. Let's figure this out because this should be possible. So the reason I tell you that story is, one, is that that's how I got here. But two, that I think a lot of the times we think we have to know the answers. And we don't. We just have to know that it should be possible. And the thing that's exciting about that is that what it means is that you get to engage people and say, you don't have to know the answer, you have to know the scale of the opportunity. And so when you invite people to participate and you show them the scale of the opportunity to make something better, but you don't necessarily know exactly how to get there, you're inviting them to participate in the process and to be a hero in achieving that world. And so that's what the next story I want to tell you is after I got involved with the Students Against Sweatshops work for a while, I read a book by Kevin Lyons called Buying for the Future. And Kevin was the chief procurement officer for Rutgers University and a professor, and he had written this book that was effectively a love letter to contract managers, saying, that they had an opportunity to do environmentally preferable purchasing. And I read that book, and I realized, oh my gosh, I've been working with the Duke stores. Duke stores buys maybe $10, $20 million worth of stuff a year. Across campus is the chief procurement officer buying $2 billion worth of stuff a year. So I walked over to the chief procurement officer's office and I made an appointment and I sat down with her and I said, did you know that you are in this incredible seat in our global economy? You're in this incredible role where you have the opportunity to demand transparency into upstream and downstream impacts in a way that no consumer could ever dream of. And you have the opportunity to bring that information into purchasing decisions at a scale that can change markets and can change supplier behavior. And you know what she said? She said, I had no idea. Can you come back to my next staff meeting and tell my whole staff? And so that's what happened. And we ended up putting on a conference, and we started an environmentally preferable purchasing program, and we created a policy and did all these things. But the thing that I learned from that is that purchasing and contract management professionals and supply chain professionals, they absolutely love to discover that there's more meaning to their work than price, quality, and delivery. And it's so amazing when you realize how much opportunity there is in this work to be a hero, to transform our world, that to have ever thought that price, quality, and delivery, and nailing that was what it was all about, and that was the big thing, right? That's the small thing. Figuring out how to nail price, quality, and delivery in a way that brings about the world that we want to inhabit, that's the big thing. So, I guess I can say that I found that to be true to the point where I've done it enough times that it's become my job. And I think that for those of you who also are in this work, carrying that message and allowing other people to join in this work is a way of making it your job. It is a way of having people join you in this work and make it something that you do. So let me jump ahead quickly here to the title of this is Buying the Future We Want Today. And some of you probably picked up on this part, the future we want. And there's Kevin Lyons, all right. So I'm not sure what's happening on the slides here, but there we go. Okay, can I control them? Is there a way that I can control them? Are they advancing on their own? Okay, all right. So this idea that there's a future that we all want, right? How many of you saw that and you thought, yeah, what does he mean? There isn't a future that we all want. We all want different things, Did anybody think that? Nobody thought that? Awesome, okay. Well, then maybe this is irrelevant. But a lot of times, well, let me just say, let me just do this anyway. Let me get a show of hands real quick. And I mean this sincerely because a lot of people, think, well, my boss doesn't want this. My boss doesn't want this, or they're focused on other things than this. We have money and deadlines and whatever else. But really, if we speak to the heart, we can break through. And so, anyway, let me just do this. I just want to get a show of hands, so get your arms ready. How many of you, want to be healthy, right? Okay, that's the easy one, right? So, We all want to be healthy. Now, how many of you want to live in a healthy community? This is what you want for yourself. You want to live in a healthy community where you can be yourself as long as you're not hurting anyone else, all right? And there's trust and there's safety and there's, engagement. How many of you want to live in a healthy economy where everyone has the ability to contribute and have their needs met and nobody's being left out, all right? How many of you want to live in a healthy environment where there's clean water, clean air, and you also have, natural places to enjoy and so on? All right, now how many of you want that not just for yourself, but you want it for your family, you want it for your friends, you want it for your employees, you want it for your customers, really, you want it for everybody? Okay. And now how many of you want that in a way that could persist forever? Right? Okay. So I've done that exercise now in a number of rooms, in a number of settings, with people across political spectrums and ideological spectrums. And I've been really surprised to see that every single time it goes just like that. Because it turns out that we really do all want to live in a healthy world with a healthy economy and a healthy community and a healthy environment, not just for ourselves, but with others in a way that can persist forever. And that's the world that I want to talk about. How do we buy that world? How do we bring that future into existence with our purchasing starting today? And so one of the things that about SPLC is that SPLC started with this blue sky idea that purchasing professionals could come together and create a program, create a way to make the path between here and there. A world today where we're buying things and we know that there are consequences, there are impacts that are not what we want. There are negative social and environmental impacts, there are negative economic impacts. How do we get from here to there? And I learned something really amazing from one of my mentors, Brian Yeoman with the National Association of Educational Procurement. He learned this from the natural step. He said, Sam, there's basically two ways that humans plan for the future. The first way is called backcasting. It just means beginning with the end in mind and then working backwards to figure out what you need to be doing today in order to get there. And it's what all of us do very naturally as individuals when we're planning for our own future. When we're, I want that job, I need to do these things to get there, I want to graduate from college, I need to do this to get in and to get through. We do that backcasting. But what the researchers at the Natural Step discovered is very interesting, is that when we humans come together to make decisions as a group and plan for the future, we very often switch gears. We abandon backcasting and we switch to forecasting. And forecasting says that what is possible in the future is bound by what's been possible in the past, by some trend line, right? And so when we talk about saving the world, what we're talking about is a trend line. We have this trend line in our mind that the world, is headed in this direction. We must rip it into some other direction, And what I love about SPLC is that we are a group that is backcasting. We're a group that's saying, we're going to start with the idea that it is possible, that we can have an economy that is enhancing the world and all of these things that we want in it every time we buy something, that our purchasing makes the world a better place and is a force for good. We're going to start there, and we're going to work backwards and figure out what we need to do to get there. And that's how all of the programs that we've developed and all the working groups and everything came into existence. At our founding summit, the members got together and said, okay, number one, we need a shared definition for what leadership and sustainable purchasing looks like across all sectors and regions. Number two, we need process guidance so that we can figure out how to go about doing this in a consistent way, so that we can have shared tools and shared solutions. Number three, we need category guidance so that we can, when we're buying and when we identify where within all of our spend and we have a big impact and we are engaging the suppliers so that we can be sending consistent signals to different suppliers and different category groups. Number three, we need training and professional development. Number four, we need a way to assess how we're doing. Are we there yet? Are we getting there? And so that's actually the incredible thing about Benchmark, that is this tool that we just released last year, is that if you look at the Benchmark maturity model, what it says down the right-hand column in the leadership column is these are the things that purchasing organizations will be doing on that glorious day when we arrive at a genuinely sustainable economy. If you look down that list, it's all things that that's what it means. And so what's incredible about that is that it now is possible to measure ourselves against that versus just measuring ourselves against who's doing what today and are we doing a little bit better than that, right? So I want to close before inviting up these three other amazing speakers who are going to share with you stories of how they, in various modes and various projects, have led incredible backcasting projects where they have imagined a world that is very different than what was happening at the moment when they started their effort. In Judy's case, it was plain out illegal, and worked backwards to figure out what they needed to do today and used purchasing power to transform that situation. So you've got a treat coming up. But I want to close by just sharing something with you briefly that I wrote, which is my ultimate backcast for this council. I'll call it it's my backcast because there are a lot of paths between this day in Minneapolis and that day when we arrive at the top to bottom sustainable economy that we want. And so I just want to hold out one possible path. From this day, we will choose to embrace the joy found in working creatively with each other, rewiring our global economy. And we will help each other. We will celebrate each other. We will co-create together. We will befriend each other. And we will innovate and strategize together. And together, we will never be isolated or alone in this work. Instead, we will be the ultimate connectors. We will invite our suppliers and our buyers and our stakeholders to share in the fantastic adventure of inventing a truly sustainable global economy. And we will be having so much fun positively impacting the world that we'll feel bad about leaving anyone out. And we'll have plenty of resources to do the work because we'll work together to become masters of documenting and making the business case not only for our own organizations, but for our suppliers. And by letting our suppliers know that we can see a future in which all business is sustainable business, and that all suppliers are sustainable suppliers, we'll put hundreds and thousands of people to work within our supplier organizations doing the work of figuring out how their business can be part of that future and be truly sustainable. In effect, we'll be multiplying ourselves 1,000-fold. And they will thank us because when they come to engage, they will find a welcoming and generous community of people that are having a great time collaborating and making a big impact on the world. And they'll say, why didn't somebody tell me about this before? I already feel that way. And I hope you do too. Thank you very much for being here. I really do mean it when I said it, when I came up here, I said, I feel so grateful to be here with you. And that's why I get emotional. And I told Heather, before I came up, Heather Perry, I said, my challenge is going to be to figure out how to tell everyone how important you are to me without getting too emotional. And I'm pushing my luck. But this is important work on the heart level. And so thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing.